What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. This is the podcast where we delve into the deepest, darkest, murkiest waters with a plethora. That's a lot. A plethora of legendary guests. I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the numero uno scumbag, Rex Ruger. That's Rex with 3. Let me turn that into 3 X's. You're looking and saying, nope, that's not it. What else do I know you as? Well, maybe you know me as AKA the King of Sleaze, AKA the Hair Metal High Priest. But most importantly, AKA Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. Here we are, father, son, son, father. Search your heart and you know that I am the son of glam, the front man for the band. Got a million fans, just smoked several grams. I'm your ice cream man, Mr. Wop Bop Baloo Bop Wop Bam Bam Shazam. Hot damn. Wop Bop Baloo Bop Wop Bang Bang. Woo! And I'm feeling good tonight. Most importantly, I'm looking good, which is always paramount in this game. And how do I do it? How do I get the quaff that looks like Roth? That's how. Get it, use it, look it. The part that is. Of course, as always, joined by Keith Hernandez Puppet, my consigliere, my doorman, my head of security, my friend, my dealer, my connection, I'm just going to get just all of it out there, Keith. Be open about our relationship. The man is always here, watching the door to the studio, making sure eyes like a hawk. A la when he played for the champion 1986 Mets at first base, number 17 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts. Coming to you as always from the luscious lavender lounge of love. And as always, this is the No Frills podcast. You get no frills because you get plenty of thrills. And the frills, my friends, are looking at us. Not to mention our plethora of legendary guests. So we're going to get down to it tonight because I got a good one, a groovy fella coming on in here. That's right, a fella that I find groovy. But that's for me to know and you to find out. You want to find out how good I am as a front man? Well, hit me up. You know, I'm always looking for players for Love Sword and or other projects because I am the hardest working man in show business up and down the Eastern Seaboard. Fronting glam and sleaze metal bands. Everybody wants to be a piece of history. They want to be the backing band. They want to get down with the man, the second greatest to ever do it. And this is also why this is the No Frills podcast, because you see me inviting my guests in here. You don't get a lot of frills. I'm almost 50 years old. I ain't got that kind of time. And he will be joining us here momentarily. And this is a fella that really, really is doing some special things. And I am going to just promote his 2019 album, which I was just grooving to yet again. And oh, let me tell you the name of it while we're waiting here. Well, he's a fella by the name of STEVIE REDSTONE. I'll put that out there. I usually don't tip people off as to who I'm having on here, but Shot in the Dark is his last album in 2019, his a full length, and just beautiful. And I can't wait to get him on here and tell him so. Let me get that out of my system. Glad that didn't come up, huh? Well, that's why I am your number 1 scumbag. So, but I digress. Yeah, so you know I'm having a big time rock star in here. So let me give myself another look and we will play another rousing rendition of Find Rex's Bad Side. And no, folks, there ain't one. That's the good news. The great news, because there ain't no bad news, not here on Pod Scum. But our guest is about to join us here, so hopefully we will get down to the brass tacks as we always do. And let me take a moment while I'm waiting here to thank all my guests personally who come on here. I am, and I will let you guys know in the next episode, but I am 60 plus interviews so far. And that's through the kindness and generosity of people willing to come on here and spend a few moments of time with me and answer my questions and deal with my foolishness. And, and that means the world to me. That allows me to be able to do this. And along the way, have conversations with some great people that I think have achieved great success in the arts and entertainment fields and or athletic fields, and maybe that commercial success isn't what some people deem successful, but I find everybody I've had on here from an artistic standpoint has impressed me with, beautiful amounts of creativity, and I salute them and I thank them for that. And tonight is no different. Tonight is another fella who is who I think who's going to be joining us right now. So let's get down to it. Another edition of Pod Scum. Hello there, sir.
Success.
Yeah.
Sorry
Whoever
about
said
that.
this technology stuff was easy, huh?
I know, right?
I thought it's supposed to be making our life much simpler, and yet sometimes these transmissions are difficult. You're not the first person, and admittedly, I hide my deficiencies in plain sight and tell people with this podcast that it is the No Frills podcast because I don't know how to do frills. I'm 49 years old, What you see is what you get. No editing, no any of that shit. I'm just sitting here rambling on while I'm waiting for you to eventually get into the room, and so be it,
Got it.
Anyway, Stevie Redstone, it's a pleasure to be joined by you, man. It really is.
Thank you.
I have, first of all, maybe you can tell me how late to the party am I? Because you are a recent discovery for me, but how long have you been going at this?
Oh, fuck. I mean, can I cuss on this show?
Huh?
I said, can I cuss on this show?
Show off, please. Feel fucking free. Yeah.
I mean, probably pushing like 16, 18 years, something like that. Long time.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I've said this very rarely on here about a couple of other albums, but I was just listening to 2019, and forgive me if I mess up anything, but Shot in the Dark.
Yeah.
Which does one of the things for me that I love that music is able to do. And I mean this as a sincere comment. When I listen to that album, it takes me back to childhood.
Uh-huh.
You know, it makes me feel like I'm in a room full of adults and I'm at their feet, and this is the kind of music that would be playing. And I mean that in a complimentary way. I love that feeling. Great music, I feel like, can transport you places,
Absolutely.
And that's what I feel like with that, what that record did. It's got such an old soul to it. So I got to ask, I mean, where does it come from? Are you an old soul?
I would say so. At the very least, musically, I would say absolutely yes. For whatever reason, I mean, I like music of all kinds and from all different sort of eras, time periods, but I mostly do gravitate towards classic rock and soul and stuff from those earlier eras for whatever reason. That doesn't mean there's not great music out there right now, but that's the stuff that I have always sort of connected with the most, I think, is that era,
So when we were bogged down with all this COVID bullshit, did you find your were you writing, were you creating more? Like, did you find it to be like a fruitful time for you to be able to create?
As a matter of fact, no, it was almost the opposite for me. Like, I was writing some and creating some, but mostly I didn't feel particularly inspired, like being kind of home all the time.
Yeah, right.
I think that a lot of times I get inspired by being out and about and seeing, friends or people in places or bars or just, what other people are going through and being just sort of like keeping my antenna up about stuff that might inspire a song.
Yeah.
And that wasn't happening a lot during that time period. So I know a lot of artists and writers, they found it freeing and great and inspiring to be able to be kind of holed up in their places and creating. But for whatever reason, I don't know, it didn't really kind of turn me on in that way. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're one of those people that needs to create by being kind of out in the world and living out in it, rather than hold up somewhere?
I think so. I mean, like there is all those stories of like Bon Iver, you know, who like went to a cabin in the woods for like 3 months and
Yeah.
like wrote his whole album there. And
Yeah.
like I don't necessarily see myself as ever being one of those types
Yeah.
of people. You know, never say never. I just like I don't really see it. I'm like I said, I'm inspired by being out and observing and just kind of feeling things and seeing
Yeah.
what's going on, and or somebody said something or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's a good little something, or and you're just kind of stealing things throughout the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
That's more when I'm writing. And like I do get inspired by reading and like sometimes stuff that's going on in the news or like articles I read or books I read or whatever. And that's kind of like home based inspiration, I guess. So like
Yeah.
it does happen,
Sure.
but like I don't know. It's mostly kind of being out in the world, I would say.
When you draw all these different, you know, where it seems like you're pulling from all these different genres in your music, and you can certainly hear it. Do you feel, did you particularly grow up in a house that was really rich in culture and music? Did you hear a lot of music growing up and a lot of different styles of music?
I mean, I would say like a sort of middle ground amount of music. Like my, both of my parents like listening to music. My dad's probably more passionate about music than my mom. And like what I remember is hearing a lot of like Beatles, honestly,
Yeah.
growing up. I would say
Yeah.
my parents are like not, how can I put this? Because I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's just the way it is. Like they don't explore a ton of music and
Right.
find new music. Like they know the bands and things that they like.
Yeah.
And it's the
Yeah.
kind of stuff that they've listened to for like a long time.
Yeah.
But in that way, like I remember hearing a lot of like Beatles and also like Motown kind of a lot
Yeah. I heard a
growing
lot
up.
of Motown growing
That
up.
was
Yeah.
kind of their jam. And
Yeah.
so, but I wouldn't say we were like one of these families where like, oh, there was music playing all the time. And my parents love music. And every time I get home from school, there's records playing. And
Yeah.
that wasn't quite the vibe, but we weren't like a, you know, boring, no music-y family either. Kind of right in the middle.
Did you kind of know out of the gate early on that it's what you want to do as a career, or were you veering towards something else at any point in your life?
Well, I don't know if I knew early on that I wanted it for a career, although I figured that out relatively early. But I definitely knew from as young as I can possibly remember that I always loved singing and quote performing. And
Yeah.
performing often meant like in my living room for my
Right.
family, you know?
Yeah. That's a good
But
place to start, though.
yeah, but I was singing and like putting on little shows and stuff when I was very young. And then early on in those times, before I found my way to like the rock and roll side of things, I actually was doing like musical theater, like plays and stuff, like in my like community.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Growing
Yeah.
up. So, and I think it was all just for the love of singing and performing, because
Yeah.
as I grew older, I was never really passionate about musicals and stuff like that. Once I hit a certain age and a certain sort of shift in my musical taste and focus. And it's funny because now, with all due respect to everyone in the world and all the creators, I kind of hate musicals now.
Yeah.
They're just like not, they just like don't do it for me at all,
Yeah.
for whatever reason. And I love music and songs, but like I don't know. So, but that's, and then the career wise, I don't know, like sometime around the end of high school / college, that's kind of when I was like, man, I really want to write songs and hopefully make a living one day by performing and touring and like not being a rock star exactly, because that was never my like intent. It was more like, how can I connect with a lot of people with my music and support myself with it and have a career, you know, in music. Yeah.
Rock stars, do they still exist? Jesus, that sounds like a term right there out of
honestly, my feeling is kind of no. I think there's like they're a kind of dying breed. Obviously there's like the old ones, but even like now, like I kind of joke / not joke that, and I don't know like every band out there, but in my sort of sphere, are you familiar with My Morning Jacket?
Oh yeah. Yeah, sure.
I feel like Jim James is kind of like one of the very last rock stars.
Yeah.
He, to me, is a rock star. He's not a rock star in the international superstardom
Right.
way.
Commercially, it might not reflect it. Right.
Yeah. As well as some of the, when you think of the word rock star, but he's like, in terms of his like spirit and the way he performs and the way he has a steady output of like great music, and just I could tell the way he thinks and the way he like presents himself. Like he's a rock star to me.
Yeah.
But the rock star, yeah, everything is just so, not even like the most popular artists can't have the reach that they had like back in the day.
Right.
You know, because it's so splintered and there's so much opportunity for indies and other people, and everybody and their mother can put out music. And
Oh yeah.
it's not like, okay, when you got a video on MTV, like everyone in the country knows who you are now.
It was special. Yeah. It was. Yeah, it meant something.
Yeah. It meant something, and it got you like notoriety. You know, people would know. Now it's like, I feel like even like someone like Beyonce Knowles, like even she can't reach as many people as she used to reach.
Right.
And she's one of the biggest stars in the world, but it's
Yeah.
not like it was even 10 years ago, you know?
So do you remember who the first person was musically who you looked at and said, wow, I want to be, you know, maybe it was an influencer. Maybe you said, that's a guy who does it the way I want to do it.
You mean like someone who's around now or old or?
Old. Yeah.
Probably like the hybrid of Lennon and McCartney.
Yeah.
Just anything Beatles.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys. And really both of them, everyone's always like trying to pick sides and Lennon or McCartney, blah blah blah. To me, it's both of them, and in many ways George, and in some small way Ringo.
Yeah,
as you can tell, I'm a big fan. But yeah, I mean, I love them both, for John and Paul, for different reasons, and I think I remember them early on being a pretty big influence on me, in both the music, but also the spirit and the you know, like I said about James, like the presentation and the connection and
Well, from what I've read and garnered and putting down his bullet points here, stuff to talk to you about. And again, I do apologize for being late to the party, but one thing I do love about technology is when I go on my Apple Music account and I search up shit, down in the bottom, it follows that algorithm and will suggest shit in the same vein. And that was really how I came across you several months ago. So I am thankful for when some stuff like that happens, because
so am I.
You know, I do like discovering it. But technology overall as a whole, though, has it hurt the music business more than it's been beneficial?
So this is something I could wax poetic on for a long time.
By all means.
It's your first question was, has it changed it, or has it, what did you say? Has it changed it?
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely, completely. It's a business altering, industry altering thing. What's happened? The money thing is totally different. But at the same time, the gatekeeper thing is different. Like, you sort of have a shot now when, even if you don't sign to like a major or strong indie,
right?
You used to basically have to do that pretty much to have any hope of success. And that's not necessarily cool. And there's probably a lot of artists and bands and music that maybe didn't get the due that it deserved because of that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, financially, it's a whole different ballgame when people who have millions and millions and millions of streams make hardly any money from reaching and being listened to by that many people.
Sad. That's
not great. Now, of course, there's other revenue sources. It's not only about streaming, but it is kind of shitty that the payout is so low and all that. Now, with that being said, I'm not one of these artists that thinks that Spotify is like the devil, you know? And a lot of people rail against them for their streaming, the payouts on the streams. But one thing to remember is that there is a discovery aspect of what Spotify does with these algorithmic playlists, you know, these Discover Weeklies. And you seem like an Apple Music guy, and they probably have similar stuff.
Yeah,
so I'm talking about
similar.
Yeah. So there are artists who benefit from that side of the technology tremendously. And so that's something that I guess we have to keep in mind when we're analyzing this, and
Right.
bear in mind that there is that's a sort of silver lining to the whole thing.
Right.
And just the fact that anybody can put out music, which, yes, granted, like maybe there shouldn't be 60 to 100,000 songs a day being put on Spotify, which is
it's a little bit overload. Yeah.
Number I heard.
Yeah. There's certainly no shortage. There's certainly an influx of music. It's just there's no way to slog through it all anymore.
No, exactly. It's impossible. But like, yeah, it's nice that like a kid in their basement can like make great music and have an avenue to release it. That's a good thing, you know? So it's such a complicated, convoluted question and topic, you know. There's so many layers to it. So yeah, but I'm not, like I said, I'm kind of in the middle of the whole thing. Like, I wish Spotify paid more. I wish there wasn't a free version of Spotify.
Right.
I wish that people had to pay something, whether it be like the $10 that it is for premium, or God forbid, like $5 a month or something. But my understanding is that the free tier is basically how they get more users to join.
Right.
And then try to convert them to premium. So I'm not smart enough to like understand whether or not that's correct or whatever. I just know that it would be nice to get a little more than like $3,000 for 1 million streams.
So,
you know?
So it seems though that you are kind of, you in 2019 you released the long play, but with the format of how people are releasing music, are you somebody that still thinks you should release music in that format? Because there are a lot of people doing the EP thing, doing the singles thing.
Right.
Where are you mentally with how you want to put music out and in what format?
So for me personally, and I will preface this with, I don't have the right answer, because
right, sure,
there is no right answer. You know?
Right.
There's no one direct path to success in this business. Otherwise, like, everybody would do it. You know?
Yeah.
So I think there's different sort of genres and different philosophies about this. But for me, like, I just grew up liking albums and artists who put out albums. And I like to think, and maybe this is arrogant, but it's not meant to, like, I like to think that when I make these records and put them together, that there is something to that body of work.
Sure.
As a body of work.
Yep.
And I was talking to a manager friend of mine the other day. There's also a sort of like moment in time capsule thing with albums that I think is cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh yeah, remember in like 1975 he put out this, and then like in 1990 he put out this, and it's just like that capsule of that moment.
Yeah.
I think that's a hip thing. And you know, so for me, I think the semi old school way of like putting out 3 to 4 singles ahead of an album and then dropping the album is like what I intend to do for my next project, which I'm in the middle of working on right now. But I mean, with like pop music and indie music and I mean all kinds of stuff, I think there's nothing wrong with singles and EPs, and I understand that the attention spans are limited, and there's the argument for just trying to make waves with a single or an EP. There's also financial considerations because it's not cheap to like record at a high level. So I get all that, but for me, like, I just want to make an album and have it be a capsule of this time and make a good body of work that's cohesive and just kind of go that route for me. Again, I'm not saying it's the right thing. Just
everyone's kind of, it seems that way too. That's the general consensus. Everyone's kind of figuring out their own formula and what works for them, as well as the fans. You know, so I mean, you know, some people would rather put out an EP where it's a small batch of very well crafted, tight songs. You know, I know a lot of metal guys I come on here and talk to are kind of in that mindset right now. Different genres of music I think kind of matters too. And I do like what you said about like an album being kind of an immersive experience where like you used to go from track one to track whatever.
Right.
Unfortunately, that seems like that's died off.
It has for probably many music listeners, but not all of them. I think there are people who are, if they're still pretty passionate about the music, and it's an artist that they care about, they'll sit down and like listen to the record. But it's a tough sell. I get it. People have so much shit flying at their faces all day.
Yeah.
And options for entertainment. So
if you have a moment to sit down, like what's your go-to playlist? Do you have one? Like who do you, if you're going to listen to music for your own pleasure,
mm-hmm.
Who are some go-to for you?
I don't know, like over the years, it's kind of always evolving. If you're asking like my sort of favorites historically,
go-tos.
These will sound like boring because like I think these are the so-called greats, but your Beatles, Zeppelin, the Stones. I'm a big Paul Simon fan. I also love the Talking Heads, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I love all of those harmonies.
Beautiful.
And I'm also like, I love the Allman Brothers. I'm into the jam band thing. So Grateful Dead. I don't listen to Fish really like outside of like their shows, but I've seen them like 60 or 70 times. I just don't like, I don't listen to them that much. I love the live experience. So those are kind of like my sort of go-to like / faves. And there's always like, whenever people ask me this question, I always like can't remember everything. And then when we hang up, I'll be like, oh, also this, and this. But that's just how it goes.
Well, that answers the question that was gonna follow that one about where your head is at when you pick these covers that you've done, these singles. But then you just mentioned Talking Heads and Paul Simon, so you just kind of answered that question about because you covered Graceland and you covered the Burning Down the House.
Yeah.
So that's you just
the highlight of our live show. The Burning Down the House thing is killer in a sweaty club. It's awesome.
Well, that brings me to stuff that I've read also online. And again, having not seen you live, this is just stuff that I've read, and it's all been on the favorable side. But high energy live shows.
Yeah.
Is that something that that you've always been passionate about? Putting forth a lot of exuberance and energy on stage. I mean, obviously, everyone wants to say they leave it all on the stage or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I mean, what's high energy mean?
Well, for me, like I tell people, like I kind of go like to level 10, meaning no matter what the scenario is or what the room is.
Yeah.
This is at least when I'm playing a full band show. Right. Obviously, if I'm doing a solo set, that's a sort of different thing, and those are usually in different types of rooms. But when I'm playing like venues and clubs, I generally lean into more of my stuff that's the sort of rock and like kind of like heavy soul, if you will. Sure. Some people have coined that. I didn't coin that, but like heavy soul rock, kind of jammy thing, because I do have that influence from all like the Fish, Allman Brothers thing. So I've seen a lot of those shows. So I always hire musicians that are like really good players.
Yeah.
And there's ripping guitar solos and drums and kind of meat. And I like a loud drummer, and I like to kind of hit hard. And even though I'm like a piano player frontman, I'm very like all over the place, dancing, standing up, banging away, going full throttle on the vocal, and like just kind of trying to hit it hard. Just like that's just where my energy goes when I'm doing shows most of the time.
Well, so I know I asked you about bands, but who are some frontmen that you think are particularly good? Because I think in keying in on your point, I think sometimes that the art of the show sometimes it's lost. Where like when you used to go see people like a Sinatra or an Elvis or whatever, you got the whole show, the costume changes, the persona, all that stuff. And I think sometimes when you go see bands, not that you have to have a show to that degree, but sometimes you don't get much show. You go see people and they stand around, it's kind of stale.
Sure.
I
mean, for me, I would say David Byrne quickly comes to mind.
Yeah.
because that guy is not nearly standing by his microphone singing and playing. I mean, he has some of the most elaborate, amazing, choreographed, insane shit that he comes up with. So he I mean, the Stop Making Sense video, like unbelievable, So he comes to mind.
Incredible.
Yeah. And like, he's a little older now, but I was lucky enough to be able to see Elton John.
Ultimate
2 times on this tour that he's doing his farewell thing. And even at his age, he is amazing. And of course, he's blessed to have an unlimited budget for his production. And so that's totally off the fucking charts too. So he's up there for me. I've seen McCartney a few times, and again, he's a little older, but he's not doing choreography and shit, but he knows how to like work a crowd and still put on a great show.
Now, I don't want to insert any plugs here, but you can obviously see the similarities here. And I have a poster of the old man hanging behind me. I mean, where does the old man rank as far as frontmen here? I mean,
Who's that? I can't tell.
That's Diamond Dave.
Diamond Dave?
David Lee Roth.
David Lee Roth, is it? Okay, yeah. Sorry, it's a little blurry on my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a badass. I'll give you that. Yeah, for sure. He's great.
Please, please give me that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we may have a bone to pick with you, us Roths, because did you not release a band under the name Steve Roth?
I did, yeah. That's true.
And we want our cut.
People used to ask me if I was related to him.
Why not? I'm claiming to be.
No relation. That's
so you opened for I don't know in all of your live shows, different bands you've opened for, but I read The Who. That's pretty big.
Yeah.
And Elvis Costello. There's a couple of people that certainly fall into rock royalty. Are you ever out at any musical things? Whether it's shows you've done or anything where you're rubbing elbows with other musicians and you yourself been kind of starstruck? I mean, I know, I don't want to turn you into a fanboy here, you know what I mean? But we all kind of geek out sometimes when we see somebody that we, I mean, has anybody bowled you over really that you've had the, pleasure of coming in contact with?
I'm trying to rack my brain. There must be, but like my brain's not working. I'm going back in the research.
Well, just The Who and Elvis Costello would be perfectly, I mean, suitable. I mean, those are legends.
Yeah, no, the Who for sure, and Roger Daltrey, Pete Townsend. I talked to him for a second, and it was like kind of a surreal thing.
Yeah,
because
I'd imagine
Roger Daltrey's great, but Pete, is the writer of all those songs. So
yeah, he's kind of the epitome of Who.
Yeah, I've met Roger more times than Pete, but I only basically met and talked to Pete once, and I was a little more like starstrucky-ish feeling, like, wow, dude, like you are the Who, like you fucking wrote all that shit.
Yeah. Oh, you're those guys. Yeah.
I didn't meet Elvis Costello. That's why I didn't think of him, because I didn't talk to him.
Elvis can't mix with the common folk.
I guess so. Yeah, that was actually on the same show. So yeah, I didn't meet him. Oh, who I met was Ringo.
Oh, that had to be a treat for you, though, as a Beatles fan. Yeah.
Fucking unbelievable. I have a funny story with how I met Ringo. It wasn't at a show or anything.
Okay.
I was at like what was basically a party that was a fundraiser. It was a fundraiser party in like a backyard.
Right.
And this woman who put it on happens to be friendly with a lot of rock stars. Like somehow in the 60s, she just got in a certain circle, and she was has maintained relationships with these people. And Ringo was one of them. And I knew he was going to be at the party. Joe Walsh was also there. And most people are outside, but then I saw him go inside, and he was like, he kind of just went off into this room by himself. And I realized it was the room where he was sitting. And I think he was kind of like looking at where people were going to be sitting in the room, because there was like name tags because of the whole fundraiser thing. Anyway, I walk in there and I'm like, okay, this is my chance. I got to say hi to Ringo.
Yeah.
So I walk in and I was like, hey, Ringo, like, I would kick myself if I didn't try to come say hi to you right now.
Right.
And literally, he doesn't even look up from the table, right? He like dead silence for what to me felt like 10 minutes. It was probably only 10 seconds.
In that situation, though,
But he's literally just as if I wasn't even there talking to him. And I was about to like walk out of the room with my tail between my legs.
Yeah.
And then he finally looks up and he goes, "Mate, don't kick yourself. Come over here and give me a hug." And I was
holy
like,
shit.
"Oh my God."
Yeah.
He fucking hugs me and he like says hi. He's like, "How you doing, mate?" And I was like, "I'm doing great." He's like, "You were playing." I was actually playing like a little trio set just as for background music. He's like, "That was you on the keys, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was." He's like, "Sounds great, mate." And I was like, "Fuck, thank you." And like,
so what was his? Did he give you any excuse as to why he wasn't answering right away? Has Ringo's hearing gone south on him? I mean,
no, I think he was just like, I caught him when he was doing something. He was doing a task. He was like, placing these name tags or whatever. He was just like, didn't want to talk yet.
He was in the
moment. And it wasn't like that long. It was just one of those things like in a movie where like it felt like an eternity, but it was probably only like 5 seconds, you know?
Yeah.
But for him to like look up and be like, "Give me a hug," I was like,
you hugged a Beatle. That's mind blowing. That's mind blowing.
Like, felt like he had like Beatle strength too. Like he hugged me and he was like, I could just like feel.
It rubbed off. I mean, literally, there could have been like osmosis going on.
Yeah. So that was probably my most like starstruck / like also kind of funny moment with him. Yeah.
When you do create, what's the creative process like for you? Like, do you have like a set routine? Like when you go create, do you have a space, at your place to do it? Or do you got to do some kind of specific, process to write and create, go somewhere specific or any kind of routine?
I mean, I would say more often than, well, not even that. So I should say that these days I do a lot of co-writing. First of all, I write by myself, but I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and out here co-writing is kind of like the thing because you meet so many great writers and artists.
It's
in the hood, and so sometimes I'm just like going to their place and writing. When I'm writing by myself, I have a room here that's kind of like my little office / piano writing room, and most of the time, if you're asking like how I write songs and how I create, I'd say most of the time I'm at the piano either practicing or playing and fumbling around, and I'll kind of land on a chord progression and immediately I go to melody because melody is kind of number one. So I start writing a melody and hopefully I can come up with some kind of lyric either because of something that inspired me and it's going on, or it just kind of, you get lucky sometimes and it just kind of comes to you because the universe sends it to you. And then I'll just kind of go down that rabbit hole and start trying to write what I can and building that story, writing that lyric, and then maybe I'll step away from the piano and just focus on the lyric itself for a little bit. Lately, like, this is a newer thing for me. I know a lot of other artists do this, but I didn't do this historically a lot, but I have a drum machine now, like a very just sort of like simple drum machine that I can put my hands on. It's not on the computer. I can just like do it with my fingers, and I'll come up with like rhythms that I intentionally will write to that rhythm as opposed to just writing the chord progression. So if I think like I really want an up tempo kind of tune for this record or something mid tempo or whatever, I'll get this drum beat thing kind of happening. Then write a chord progression, melodic sort of thing to that, and then kind of go about finishing the song however I do. So that's generally how it happens for me. And then like I said, with the co-write thing, sometimes I'll just show up and like talk to the other writer. Is there something you want to write about today, or or just how those collaborations happen in all number of different ways depending on how those writers write.
But if you're writing for just yourself, do you usually take material that you prepare and bring it to, like, you have a set backup band all the time, or a backing, or a full-on band that you use all the time?
I do, yeah. I mean, there are occasions where I'll have to sub someone out if something's going on in their life or work or whatever. But mostly, like I've only lived in Nashville for this year, and since I've been here, I'm pretty sure every show I've done has been the same band.
Yeah. And I have read that sometimes you're fond of in the live setting of taking the song in a different route than from the studio version, kind of going off on jams and stuff.
Yeah.
And, is that something that you make sure that is that a spontaneous thing? How do you work that out? Do you work that out like with a band prior to, or is a band just in a moment and just kind of locked in?
Well,
spontaneous
sort of both.
jams like that.
It's a little bit of both. I think that we don't jam every song. Like I always say that we're not a jam band in the traditional sense of the word, and we don't do like 40-minute one song type of shit like Fish and The Dead and all that.
Right. Yeah, going on and on.
Yeah. I don't mean that. I mean, I love those things. I'm just saying that that's not what I do, because my writing doesn't necessarily lend itself to that either.
Right.
But and also within a set, not every song is a jam platform song, but like 70% of them, like at least will have some kind of open section. But even those, like sometimes we'll sort of predetermine how long they'll be, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes I just kind of rely on the energy of the crowd and see how people are feeling or how we're feeling as a band. And if we're locked in and kicking ass, we'll let it go longer. But like I said, not every song is that the platform for doing that.
Right.
But some of them are just like straight up 3.5 minute pop songs or whatever, structured thing. But yeah, like I get off on like making every show a little bit different. We're not the group that's going to play the same exact set 100 times in a row. If we're doing a tour, we're going to make each song a little bit different, and certainly make the sets different. Yeah. Cause I like jamming, and I like when I go to shows, I like hearing musicians who can play and open up the songs and play them not exactly as they are on the record. I think that's kind of fun,
Yeah. Yeah. So, I know you've got something, a prior engagement tonight, so I can't keep you very long, but in closing,
the
new album will be out upon us when?
I don't have a hard date yet.
Okay.
But definitely like probably spring to summer of next year would be my guess.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's basically more than halfway recorded. And I'm just kind of in writing mode to get the last 3-ish songs that are going to make it kind of over the edge. But between the holidays and the music business kind of slowing down in December, which is kind of what happens, and then everyone kind of getting their shit back together as the new year starts.
Right.
I don't expect to get back in the studio until like January, I don't think. And then knock it out, and then you have to go through the business of figuring out your release plan and your marketing and how you're going to get that done and attack it right, so you give your record a chance at success, given everything we already talked about with how much shit is out there. And
there's a lot of it. And you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of shit. There's a lot of shit to sift through too. With all that music that's being released.
Listen, all those 60,000 a day tracks plus are not all.
They can't all be good, Stevie, right? No.
I'm sorry. There's not.
So, and obviously people can follow you at all the major platforms. You're out there. People can keep up on everything that's going on in your world. And in the meantime, until next spring or summer, I'll just continue to jam Shot in the Dark. Listen, that Looking Glass song, beautiful, gorgeous, just a beautiful song, beautiful.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite, and it was actually the most played song on my Spotify Wrapped this year. Yeah, that's a special one to me for sure. That's the kind of song where like I don't play that much in the sweaty clubs because it's like an acoustic like love song. But I wish that I could, because I have a lot of songs that are more not exactly like that song, but they're sort of pretty, or they're ballads, or they're slower, or whatever. And when I eventually get to hopefully where I want to go, I'll be able to do a moment in the set where I can do like 4 of those songs.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then so after that album comes out, is the plan to go on tour?
Yeah, For sure. Well, like part of the reason I moved to Nashville is I'm trying to build my team here, meaning
Right.
booking agent, manager,
Right.
etc.
Right.
So I've traditionally toured like a pretty healthy amount, but I'm hoping that if the record gets legs and I put a team together, then I can get some better slots on a tour, like opening up for a bigger artist and
Yeah.
get some support slots and be playing to more people when I go out. So
Come up
that's
and
what
see
I'm.
us. Definitely come up and see us here in upstate New York. We
Yes,
definitely
sir.
need a show. We're freezing
man.
our asses off here right now. It is the heart of winter. I don't know what the temperature is where you are, but we are freezing, sir.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Well, good
that's not
luck with
good.
that.
It's never good. And you know, I am glad that I am now at least in the know and part of the Stevie Redstone world domination
Yes,
plan.
sir, you are,
Yeah,
and I
I'm
appreciate
on
you
board.
reaching out.
I'm on board. Best piece of advice in closing that you could give someone or that's ever been given to you.
That's ever been given to me?
Yeah. Or that you could give to somebody. Maybe it's your pearl of wisdom.
I don't know. I think that there are different definitions of success for one thing.
Yeah.
So figure out what success means to you.
Oh, I love that.
And don't give up. Do it as long as it makes you, as long as it's fun.
Yeah.
And, I'm working on this myself to this day, but I think manifestation is important, and like maintaining a positive mental outlook in a business that is so just fucking brutal, just
I know.
at least for me in my experience, like
no, it's
can
not
hammer
foreign.
you
I
down.
talk to a lot of musicians on here, and it's certainly a common sentiment that you see.
Yeah.
It's
So I
frustrating.
think try to maintain and try to like have fun along the way, because there's so many instances of artists and people in all kinds of careers where they get to that place,
right,
and they realize that place is not what they thought it was going to be, and they've been like an unhappy person up until they got there.
Right.
So like try to be happy and enjoy the journey, and know that the journey's it's part of the whole thing, and don't be like in a pissy mood the whole time. And that's something that we all go through, myself included, very much, so it's like
very well said.
Be happy and define your success, whatever that means to you, and enjoy the ride.
Listen, man, I wish you all the best, man, going forward. I hope we can keep in touch, and we can maybe do this again after the album comes out.
Sure. Love to.
Yeah, I'll stay in touch, sir, and I really appreciate you being so generous with your time. Thanks, Stevie.
My pleasure, brother. You have a great night. I'll talk to you
soon. Yes, you too, brother. Thank you.
All right,
night.
Bye-bye.
Later. There he goes, folks. That is Stevie Redstone. Please go out and make that guy a monstrous star, because if you go listen to 2019's Shot in the Dark, that's the name of the album, by the way, Shot in the Dark. And I hate to say, because I've said it about our other albums, change your life. And certainly your perspective on music. And your tastes will go from here up through here. No, just very good music that takes you to a time in life when everything was just so much simpler. Stripped down, soulful, 70s inspired music. That is a good man right there. That is Stevie Redstone out of Nashville, Tennessee. Last offering, other than some singles, he just did a great cover of Burning Down the House by Talking Heads. Before that, he did a great version of Graceland by Paul Simon. You heard him list those guys as influences. If you need a whole album, like I said, 2019 Shot in the Dark is a beautiful album from start to finish, which you don't see a lot. So go out and check out everything that Stevie Redstone does. The guy is a gem. You're welcome. That's right. I tip you guys off to good shit. So you open up your ears and listen. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Pod Scum. And remember to take it easy and keep it sleazy.